Hi, my name is Liz Hathway and this is my astrological look at the week ahead. It's the week starting the 14th of January 2019. So the day starts off, or the week starts off, shall we say, on quite a conciliatory note. We have Mercury reaching out to Neptune. There's a lovely sextile here. Neptune is very much about joining in, coming together, you know, the borders. Let's not focus on what separates us. Let's unite. Let's be as one. So this is a sort of conciliatory voice in a way. It's a sort of balm on an open wound. It soothes. It's a sextile, remember? So sextiles, you have to work for them. They have to be proactive. You know, you've got to get busy. You've got to kind of draw it out and work with it. But nonetheless, a very good start, I think, to the week. On Friday, I'm doing a major shift because, of course, I only look at the major aspects. I don't really focus too much on the moon because I just want to keep it to the main, you know, the main planets and their main aspects. So on Friday we have Venus in Sagittarius, which is very expansive, very free, very energetic. Very entrepreneurial in many ways. You know, it's a kind of a business, as a business planet, Venus, very much about the entrepreneurs, people who were willing to take some risks and invest in some, you know, kind of quite maybe daredevil schemes, particularly when she trines Mars, which she does on Friday, Mars in Aries. So this is the grand passion, you know, we can get swept off our feet with this. It's very enthusiastic. Fire is, you know, it races ahead of itself in a way. And yet when we just take a little look and see where Venus is heading after that trine and where Mars is heading after that trine, then there is maybe a little bit of a need for caution. We shouldn't rush in. Remember, fools rush in. We should maybe take a real look at things before we put a signature to it, or before we rush off, you know, enthusiastically getting other people to join us and come on board. We need to really look at the small print here, because what happens is Venus moves on to square Neptune, and Neptune, Venus square Neptune can be the rude awakening, you know, can be the eye opener, can be where the dream, you know, becomes a bit of a nightmare in some respects, or we lose our way in it, you know, can't see the wood for the trees. And then Mars squares Saturn on Monday next week, on the day of the eclipse. So Mars square Saturn, even though the reception here is really good, the main theme here is taking responsibility for one's actions. As I say, Mars is very much fools rush in where angels fear to tread. And then Saturn says, okay, you've done that, pick up the bill. You know, there's consequences attached to that. So that this Mars Saturn square falls, I think, on the day of the lunar eclipse. It's quite important because, you know, eclipses, they sort of have a long shadow. So the shadow of that eclipse in a way is falling over this week for sure. So there's a little warning in there, you know, to look before we leap, to think about consequences and not get swept away in that Venus-Neptune energy of, you know, mañana, we'll see how it turns out. You know, we have to be a little bit focused and a little bit sensible, I think. We're still in Capricorn season as well. On Friday as well, we have Mercury conjunct Pluto. So these, again, this is the shadow period building up to the lunar eclipse. Mercury conjunct Pluto. Mercury has a relationship with Pluto. I mean, remember, Mercury is the psychopomp, you know, who leads the souls of the dead into the realm of Hades. So, you know, Mercury has a relationship. It also, Mercury has that ability as well to move between worlds. It was the messenger of the gods. It could move around. So Mercury conjuncting Pluto. So Mercury's in this energy, this Pluto energy, the dark energy, the depth of understanding, the depth of self-knowledge. And I think it's interesting seeing as we're having a lunar eclipse that's coming up now, that we allow ourselves to make contact with, you know, that deeper source that we have. You know, sometimes like eclipses are like spotlights, you know, they emphasize things, they bring things out. And it could be that some people really are in a crisis at the moment or experiencing a crisis, and we can look at countries and think, yeah, the whole countries are in crises at the moment. But there's something good about crises, and that is basically it can draw the best out of you. And that is what Pluto does. It's pulling from the depths. It's this depth of understanding, depth of self-knowledge. It's like when the lights go out, when there's, you know, you can't sort of feel where you are. You know, there's this other senses suddenly, you know, make themselves known to us. So that is a very interesting conjunction, I think, running into that lunar eclipse next week on Monday. On Saturday, Sun squares Uranus. That's interesting. I want to just, sorry, another note on Friday as well. If, as I suspect it won't, Theresa May's vote does not go ahead on Tuesday, then on Friday, 3 days later, she has to come with a plan B to Parliament. So that's interesting. That's falling around the time of that Mercury-Pluto conjunction as well. And then on Saturday, we have Sun square Uranus. So that is a sudden, in my mind, last minute, ditched effort, major change in direction. Cardinals are turning points in the Earth cycle. They can make things happen. So somehow something is sudden, something has happened that has to bring about some kind of change of course, some kind of change in direction. And as I say, on Sunday we see the Sun moving into Aquarius, which is air. Air is about communication. Air is about sharing, it's ideas, it's passing them round, it's, you know, looking for consensus. Air is a different energy than Earth. And then we see on Monday immediately, a week today, we have that lunar eclipse. It's a big eclipse. It's in the early lunar eclipses in the first degree of Leo, 0 degrees 40, I think, something like that of Leo. The Sun just in Aquarius. So a big eclipse. And this events, as I say, coming up this week are sort of forerunners of that eclipse. And I think one of the main messages here is to heed our own counsel, to not rush in, to take time to consider consequences, and, you know, to sort of listen to our deepest inner voice. Okay, thank you for listening. Have a great week. Bye.